Welcome, welcome! It's Mud Dog with the Texas Space Navy bringing you another Star Citizen video. And today I thought I would go over the article about the new Imperator Addison still settling into the new role of Imperator. This article takes place on Braha Oya 3 Oya system. It says, the packed crowd erupted in applause when the Imperator Leonie Addison took to the auditorium stage in her old secondary school. The recently elected Imperator smiled warmly and thanked the crowd for her patience, or for their patience. My day's been a bit more hectic than expected. No one seemed to mind, though. This was Imperator Addison's first visit to where she grew up since her inauguration on January 1st. According to sources within the administration, the event in Oya was a welcome reprieve for Imperator Addison after the chaotic first few weeks of her term. Intent on hitting the ground running, her administration instead struggled to find its footing. From the embarrassing guest list incident at her inauguration gala to the weak applause senators gave her following her first speech before the assembly, the independent candidate who somehow never stumbled during the campaign is still searching for her first political win as an Imperator. Today, before adoring supporters in Oya, Imperator Addison launched into a speech similar to the one she gave countless times on the campaign trail, but with some marked difference. Many of her ambitious campaign promises were now couched by more diplomatic language. She reiterated her desire to dramatically increase funding for education and scientific research, but acknowledged that the Senate approval of the budget would be necessary, a detail never mentioned in the campaign trail, but one that the Senate leaders proudly reminded the public about following her speech to them. Senator Walter Fisk, a prominent centralist on the Budgetary Committee, even went as far as to characterize the cost of the proposal laid out in her speech before the Senate as astronomical, economically ignorant, and a grave threat to the fiscal future of the empire. In Oya, Imperator Addison spent the largest part of her speech discussing progress made on the first act promise to loosen AI restrictions. The lightning rod issue garnered her campaign massive publicity and support, along with some scorn. She discussed in detail how our plan to override the outright ban on AI research had begun, and on her first day in office, Imperator Addison signed an imperial action ordering the Senate to revisit, reform, and revise the current law banning all AI research, and paved the way for the creation of the AI Ethics Panel at the Imperial Science Council that would be vital in strengthening and securing the scientific and economic future of the empire. The imperial action invoked a little-used privilege allowing imperators to compel Congress to consider a law if it has not appeared on the legislative docket within 25 years or more. She explained that reopening the debate on the law would then allow an amendment to be introduced that carves out exemptions for highly specific situations. Imperator Addison believes that this legislative route would be faster as only an amendment and not an entire new law would need to be drafted. So the Senate observers have also noted that the new law would need to be considered and passed by the Science and Technology Committee, a hurdle few believe it could clear at this time. Introducing an amendment to a current law definitely sidesteps the committee battle and would be an amendment to vote before the Senate. While the imperial action excited her supporters, Imperator Addison now seems keen on tempering their expectations. She made it clear in her speech that it will be a long process that would probably take years before any permits were issued. Imperator Addison's carefully calibrated speech to her alma mater seemed to acknowledge that elements of her ambitious political agenda are under revision. Behind the scenes, several of her top advisors reportedly met to prioritize her campaign promises into several categories ranging from achievable to unfeasible. While no one has been willing to go on record regarding the fate of specific high-risk efforts, several administration officials have started quoting a piece of advice given to Imperator Erin Toy by her Chief of Staff Clement Redfield. Campaign on the dream, but govern on reality, or to the reality. So tasked with repairing the damage and disgrace done to the government by centuries of Messer regime rule, Redfield understood the balancing act between political dreams and political realities, and he repeatedly advised Imperator Toy to focus on what could be accomplished instead of what she promised to accomplish. Invoking Redfield's advice among Imperator Addison's staff appears to signal similar shift by the current administration. Ever since her surprising election win, political observers have wondered how Imperator Addison, who has never previously held political office, would handle the transition from an aspirational underdog candidate to governing the most significant political institution in human history. Critics feared she would be woefully unprepared for the demands of the position, an argument bolstered by reports that her team has struggled to fill several key positions within the administration. They were also forced to pull the nomination of Marianne Althoff to be the Undersecretary of the Department of Transportation and Navigation after their vetting process failed to uncover several controversial and defamatory public statements against high-ranking members of the UEE High Command. Meanwhile, supporters that attended Imperator Addison's speech in Oya either overlooked her new calibrated language or didn't care about the distinction. Most still expressed unbridled enthusiasm for the new Imperator and her policy goals. According to Silva Wardlaw, an administrative clerk for a local shipping concern, "I hope she can accomplish what she promised, but I'm sure there'll be snags. Even if she gets half of it done, the Empire will be headed in the right direction and I'll be happy." Many in attendance were quick to highlight what they see as her successes so far, such as the recently announced Xenoscience Conference that will have leading scientists from across species convening in New York later this year, or her appointment of Ki Jota, the first ever Tavaran cabinet member. Whether Imperator Addison supporters will remain loyal once faced with political realities and roadblocks like an uncooperative Senate remains to be seen. Considering she ran as an independent, it will be vitally important for Imperator Addison to keep her voters engaged and on her side. With no built-in political party carrying out her objectives, she'll need her voters' help in pressuring senators to support her policies. Administration insiders claim the goal is to use her popularity to mobilize her base to convince their senators to join a new coalition and interested in steering the empire towards her goals. Without this continued support from voters and buy-in from like-minded senators, Imperator Addison may struggle to get any significant legislation done. Only time will tell if the skills that made Imperator Addison a truly unique candidate will translate into her becoming an accomplished head of state. So what do you think, guys? This was the article that CIG posted today. Kind of interesting that, Addison's kind of going back on some of her policies. Now, I don't want to get too much into real-life politics because that's just a that's just a pot ready to explode in our faces. So let's just talk about the CIG, Star Citizen, in the verse politics. Your character, if you're a role player, what do you feel like if you voted for Addison? How do you feel about her kind of backtracking a little bit or taking some of the pressure off of some of the initiatives that got her elected or that she promised? And what are you going to think if she can't get any of them done? Are you going to blame her? Are you going to blame the Senate? What's your plans? How's your character going to feel about that? And how's your character going to feel about if she has to play ball, so to speak, with some of the other politicians out there or some of the corporate interest, etc.? Because she wants to put more money into Synth World and she wants to sell some of that technology, but who's she going to sell it to? Most likely some of the already rich technological companies out there, companies that can afford to pay the highest price, and they're going to make you pay the highest price to pay for that product, so to speak. So what's your insights on that? How do you feel about that? Personally, I didn't vote for Addison. I'm interested to see how it all turns out with her. But I think it's going to be more bad than it is good. How's that going to be for roleplay in the verse for us? That could be good. That could be really terrible. Just depends on how CIG really want to take this. Could be an uptick in pirates. It could be maybe there's a rogue AI group that splinters off that we have to deal with in the future. You know, it could be as simple as maybe there's going to be a coup and we have to deal with some of the fallout from that. We really don't know where it's going to go. It's only, you know, half a month into the new Imperator's reign. We have to give her a chance to try to get some policies done, in my opinion, and kind of go from there. How much input are we going to have in some of the policy making decisions or the votes that the Senate partakes in? Do we get a direct vote as well? You know, we just don't know how any of that's going to work out. So what are your guys' thoughts on this article and on Addison and kind of her speech that kind of pulls back a little bit from her stance going into the election? Let me know in the comments down below. I do want to take a moment to thank everybody who's been tuning in lately. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for all the views. Thank you for all the support from Patreon and YouTube members. You guys are awesome. You definitely saved my life in the past. I continue to thank you for that because I mean it. Thank you to everybody out there who watches the ads all the way through and watches my videos all the way through. That certainly helps as well. So thank you very much. I do have more stuff coming up soon. I'm trying to continue this trend of getting a video out every day. Again, it's kind of like a habit that you just have to get into, and once you get out of it, it's hard to get back into it sometimes. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that I'm putting the time in to try to get more videos and content out for you. So what do we got coming up tomorrow? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. Thank you again for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm Mud Dog with the Texas Space Navy, and I'll see you out in the verse.